This week in post, unscripted, uncut, unrehearsed, it's a live edit. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome to In Post. Thanks for joining me today. I'm eager to get started on this photo, but before I do, I want to get your photo questions. You can reach out to me through my website, comments on the video below. However you'd like to ask a question about photography, I want to hear about it. Post-processing, camera work, whatever it might be. It'd be great to hear what's on your mind and become part of the conversation. So today, doing a live edit. Live is in air quotes. If you haven't seen one of these before, what I do is I take a photo from my library, start the recording, go from beginning to end, and we see what happens. There'll be wrong turns, bumps, and I'll just kind of verbalize what I'm thinking as I go through it. We are going to do this this photo that I was looking at and working on, taking the behind the scenes look during In the Field. So we've got these three panels of a vertical panorama. I'm going to select all three of them, and I'm going to hit the right, or not the right bracket key. I need to rotate these photos because what I've found, let me rotate them right. What I've found is that when Lightroom does the stitching, it seems to do a better job when the panels look like they're vertical. And so I've gotten into this habit and I get a better result, and then I get that merged and then we rotate it back. So here's the basic merger. Not too bad. It doesn't have too much space on the sides. We'll go ahead and let's quickly take a look at spherical versus spherical. Actually gives me a little bit more top to bottom. It doesn't look like there's too much strange warping going on. I'm really just watching this. Although I think the crispness here is a little better. Let's take the boundary warp. We'll go ahead and stretch that all the way out and go ahead and do the merge. Okay, there's our merge. We'll go ahead and rotate that back into a vertical orientation. Of course, I chose the wrong one. Now I've got to do, let's see, Command bracket. Let's just do it twice. There we go. All right, we'll bring that into develop with the D key. And we'll take, one of the things I'll first do after I've done the stitching is take kind of a closer look at where the panels come together and just make sure that there's no strange artifacts. There's no like wobbly lines anywhere in the trees. It doesn't look like. That all looks good. The cloud line at the background looks good. And anything in the foreground and the water. The reflection looks good. That's important. This concrete walkway, that all looks cool. All right, that looks pretty good. Looks like we got a good merge. And now we'll do our processing. Let's start with lens corrections. We'll turn that on, before and after for that. That's fine. And I'll check our crop. I'll try auto here for the leveling. All right, yeah, really can't detect anything here. There really isn't much of a straight line there. I'm going to use this this base of these rocks here as kind of this would be ground level, and making sure that I've got a good horizontal cut through the reflection. And there is very little change there, and that's okay. It means I did a good job with the camera. All right, basic processing. Let's get in here. So quick image assessment. What do we got going on? I certainly want the red gate to stand out, and I need to bring down some of the highlights in the background. There was some interesting texture in those clouds there, so I want to make sure those come out. And then from there, we'll see, just maybe adding some ambiance, maybe adding some mood to the scene. And we'll just see where this processing takes us. So let's go ahead and play around a little bit with the white balance. I actually like as shot better, maybe a little bit warmer, ever so slightly. I'll undo that again and check. Yeah, I'm gonna raise that warmth up. The sky and the water is not as blue, but we'll take care of that with some color later. Okay, exposure looks good. We've got really good blacks, whites. Let's lower a black point, and I'm holding on the Option key or the Alt key on a Windows machine to see these little heat maps show up. All right, open up our shadows a little bit, like that. That's for the trees and the surrounding the gate. And then we'll bring those highlights down and start to recover some of those nice textures in the sky. Much better already. Good. Actually, oh, wow, cranked it all the way down. How about some basic contrast? Let's start playing there. Looks pretty good. That's our white point. I'm not going to play with that. Incidentally, if you didn't know, you can drag around on the histogram as well as the sliders in Lightroom to adjust things. I do that occasionally. If there's an obvious peak in the histogram, I'll grab that and just start dragging around. All right, so I think for the sky, I want to rein in the highlights a little bit more, and I've already, really crushed highlights there. So we'll get gradient, drop that on there. I must have some type of interesting tinting or something going on here. All right, we'll get that there. Let's just take the highlights down. I don't want to play with the exposure too much, at least not initially. Not bad. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to tweak exposure ever so slightly. And then, of course, I don't want that on the treetops. So let's balance this out. Rotate that nice and flat there. And this cloud bank at the background is already pretty dark. Let's grab the brush. We'll choose the eraser. I will auto mask, and we'll turn on our overlay so we can see what's going on here. And then just kind of work through the tree and remove this stuff out of here. And we'll actually crank up the flow and the brush here. That'll speed things up a lot more. Get a lot more of that exposure removed with each brush stroke. Okay. Looking pretty good there. Another closer sweep along the top. Right through that one there. You get the idea. Let's turn off the auto mask and just make sure I've gotten the center of those trees, making sure I don't have any exposure adjustment there. All right, so let's do a quick before and after check here. Before and after. Okay, this is already looking pretty cool. Let's close that out, and let's take a visit to clarity. So clarity a little bit here, and that's really going to make a nice pop on the trees. I like that already. What about vibrance? Yeah, and actually even a little saturation. There's not, other than the gate itself, there's not a lot of reds and oranges and so forth, so we can do some global saturation there. I'm certainly going to pop into hue, saturation, and luminance. I mentioned that the blues were getting a little bit washed out from the adjustment with the white balance, so we're going to bring some of that back in. Now the exposure drop on the top half of the scene, that worked pretty well. Matter of fact, changing my mind, let's go here. I'm going to select this and I'm going to duplicate it. And now I'm going to take that duplicate and kind of flip it around and see if that's going to give me a similar effect as it did in the sky. So once again, I'm going to do that like this, and I'm really paying attention to just the blue parts here in the water. Turn it off, turn it on. That's good, and I don't even really worry too much about brushing away for the reflection, because that can be a little darker. This is where I want your eyes to go. Now, as I was doing that, I realized I had a spot in the lower right corner. I completely forgot to do dust spot removal. So let's take care of that now. So Q key, and I'll do A to turn on visualize spots. And you can see I've got a whole heck ton of sensor spots, which that's just unfortunate because that's going to take a little bit of time. Get those guys there. I'll really just do the egregious ones now. Otherwise, watching me brush away spots is about as enjoyable as watching paint dry. So I'm not going to bore you with all of that. And I might even speed up the video so you don't have to watch this going on in super slow-mo here. But you know what? I'm going to call that, I just found a trifecta here. 1, 2, 3 right there. It's going to be the same grouping because I had 2 or 3 panels of Panorama. And well, the spots are on the same sensor. I would say the same spot on my sensor each time. So they just keep showing up over and over and over. All right, next thing, I want more detail. I want the detail in this bunch of trees to come through here. So I'm pretty happy with color at the moment. Let's go over to detail, hit the masking, and hold down Option and drag. And so anywhere that is dark, black and dark gray, there's no detail that's going to be applied, and anything else is going to get popped up. And so this swatch here is showing me those trees. So I can increase this. You can actually do an option drag on the detail slider, the radius slider. These are very difficult to see on the video. Sometimes they're even really difficult to see on your screen, but you can start to see the edges of where you'll get that detail pulled in. Now, I still want a little bit more in the trees themselves. So we'll go back to a brush. Let's zero out the brushes here. What do we got for a preset here? We don't have detail. We got clarity, so we can do clarity. Let's pop clarity up to 22 and start there. Brush it about half strength and just start to paint this through the greens area here. And I don't need to be perfect on this. This is accentuated. All right, good stuff there. And you might be asking, oh, Scott, are you going to go into another tool? Are you going to go into On1 and do some work here? Much as I'm pretty sure On1 would do a fantastic job. Dynamic contrast would really, really punch up those trees. This photo is all right. As it's starting to come together, it's okay. It's not a killer sky. It's not an epic photo. And so I don't know if I'd spend more than the handful of minutes on it as we're doing here in Lightroom. And so I think I'm just going to really kind of finish this one off. And I have some different shots from this same outing where it was just the center trees here. Yeah, I might do something a little more detailed, artistic with that one. Let's finish things off then. Let's take a look at a vignette, and I'll just pop that down to begin with and see where we go. I'm going to switch this over to color priority. Sometimes that does a better job of not making the edges look too artificial. Actually, someone through me doing all these YouTube videos recommended that to me, and it is a really great tip, doing that color priority trick. All right, let's see what we have here. So let's check before and after here. So this is before. Well, this is before we did the stitching, right? We had the 3 panels, stitched them together. We rotated them to, I think I rotated them clockwise. Stitch them together, rotate the pano back, and then that's after. That's pretty nice. I'm gonna call this one. I think I'm gonna call it mostly good. One thing I'm looking at is the purplish hue up in the sky. Let's whoops, wrong panel. Let's take a look at taking away a little bit of that purple and kind of shooting it more toward blue. Just a little bit. And that, because this wasn't quite twilight. I mean, it was getting there, but that just felt a little bit too purplish. That's too purple. That's a little more blue. I'm going to split the difference somewhere around -10 or so. I said I'll split the difference, so I'll make it 12. Well, I'm going to make it 13 because I'm struggling with this scroll thing. Let's see that before and after. If that shows up on the video, you've got a great monitor. It's a subtle touch. Well, if you've watched me long enough, you know that's kind of what I'm all about. Subtle touches here. Well, I think that's it. It's going to be the finished product here, and this photo is done. Well, the tip of the week, I think I'm going to cast my vote for the post-crop vignette and changing the mode from highlight to color priority. That often makes a nice distinction between a too dark of a corner and a nice, like really just gently burned corner. And I especially notice it with landscapes and with open skies. So if you're playing around with Lightroom's vignette tool and think it's a little bit heavy-handed, try switching it over to that color priority mode. That'll do it for this week's In Post. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, comment on the video, send me a question through my website. Share this with a friend. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel. I'd like to see our community growing. We're getting some nice conversation going on. I want to keep that up so we can all become better photographers together. That is the whole point of doing these videos and coming back week after week. Well, until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting. So what's the tip of the week? I think I'm going to go with the luminosity. No, I'm not going to go with that because I just made up some term halfway in my head and only half of it made it out of my mouth.